Very good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, November 24th, 2014. It is my pleasure to call the City of Burnsville Planning Commission meeting to order. Welcome, Commissioners.
Good evening,
Staff,
sir.
welcome. To our listening and viewing audience, thanks for tuning us in. We do appreciate it. Today's agenda has 6 items. 1, adoption of agenda. 2, approval of the minutes from November 12, 2014 meeting. 3, a public hearing, application for M&M Burnsville Associates LP for a planned unit development amendment for construction of a Starbucks and Chick-Fil-A restaurants located at 1200 County Road 42 West. Item 4, a public hearing, ordinance amending Title 10, Chapter 30, Subdivision 3 and Subdivision 7 of the zoning ordinance of the Burnsville City Code, addressing eliminated architectural features and wall signs. Item 5 will be updates, and item 6, the Planning Commission actually is not part of the meeting, but Commission and staff will be meeting socially at Carboni's this evening. So, first item, adoption of agenda. And any addition to the agenda?
None from me, Chair.
None, sir.
Do I hear a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Benke,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Thomas. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0 vote. Approved. Item 2, approval of the minutes from the November 12, 2014 regular meeting. Any corrections, changes? Commissioner Bradley?
Chair, I have a slight change I'd like to make to the meeting agenda. Chris, you want me to start with that, or?
That'd be perfect.
Okay. Chair, on page 2, in reference to the NUSCO leasing and YRC preliminary final plat approval, in condition number 4, as a security ensuring compliance with the use of termination and demolition conditions, the applicant shall execute an agreement with the city providing that the real property is a security for the March 15th, 2035 deadline. And I believe that needed to mirror the wording in condition number 2 and condition number 3.
That's correct. Thank you for catching that, Commissioner Bradley. So we need, I think, Commissioners, you agree with the change?
Yes.
It needs to be changed. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I can jump in, staff reviewed this, and actually, I appreciate Commissioner Bradrick bringing this up. I looked at it, and as lengthy as this condition is, what I'd like to do is what you see on the screen in front of you, eliminate that date altogether. As Jim said, it is incorrect. But rather than getting into the earlier date of 2030 or if and when the trucking company ceases, I read through this a few times. If we cut that out, it essentially reads the same, it accomplishes the same thing, and it'll, I think, make things more succinct if the Commission's comfortable with that.
Agree?
I agree.
Okay. I think it's unanimous that we accept that change. Any other correction in the minutes?
None from me, Chair.
Do staff, any other corrections?
Nothing else?
Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Corey,
Second.
second by Commissioner Bradrick. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0 approval. Thank you, Commissioners. Item 3, public hearing. Application for M&M Burnsville Associates LP for a planned unit development for construction of Starbucks and Chick-Fil-A restaurants located at 1200 County Road 42 West. Mr. Slanian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. The application in front of you is for a PUD amendment. There is a required public hearing with the application. We are looking at raising the existing Champs restaurant, replacement with 2 freestanding restaurants, Starbucks and Chick-Fil-A. Both restaurants would have a drive-through and outdoor seating on the property. Excuse me. We jump to this image. can see the subject site, oddly shaped, but it is lot and block. It does have access out to Irving Avenue here, and you can see here the area highlighted in yellow where the most significant changes are. You can see the Champs Building as it sits today. Both Starbucks and Chick-Fil-A would be tenants of the existing shopping center or the management company. We are not looking at a plat or subdivision involved with this application. As I indicated, it is a PUD. Staff finds this redevelopment very appealing from a retail standpoint. Obviously, County Road 42 is our major retail corridor, as well as for much of Dakota County. We feel bringing more density here is a benefit. It also adds more impact or more demand to those existing parking stalls. From staff standpoint, I think the applicant would agree, much of the parking fields on site are underutilized. This adds some developable area without adding unused hard surface. It allows us to better utilize the existing parking and the hard surface that's there, accomplishing multiple things at one time. We'll get into the design and the landscaping of the buildings, but both are quality designs, have great curb appeal, and should be a great asset to this section of 42. There are a number of deviations. We'll get to those as we go through the project. One would be the green space. Second would be the parking. We've got building perimeter landscaping we'll discuss, the use of metal panels, and finally request for pylon signs within the site. The total property is just 14 acres in size. The existing green space is 18%. The required green space for this zoning district is 25%. The applicant, through this redevelopment, has maintained that 18%. That is something they're able to do through the PUD, staff supportive of it. They're actually adding 500 square feet of green space to the site. Again, we feel that's a project to get larger tax base, more tenants into this site without adding hard surface to it. There's also a range for parking based on the size of the shopping center and the tenants that are in there. Let me run through some of these numbers. The existing parking is 639 stalls. The ordinance allows a range between 651 and 710 parking stalls. That is based on the total development with the 2 new restaurants, with TCF Bank. Although that is a separate parcel, it's still included in these parking calculations to give you an idea what we're dealing with. The applicant's proposing 585 stalls, so there is a reduction from what's existing, basically the placement of the buildings and some reconfiguring of that. Again, staff is comfortable with those numbers and comfortable with the deviations presented. As I mentioned, the Champs Building would be eliminated, and the 2 proposed restaurants would be located in the southeast corner. Let me just take a second and walk through the overall site plan to give you a better understanding of what's going on, and we can get into the details of each building after that. Let me start by saying there are no access changes to the shopping center. There is a right-in, right-out along County Road 42. This is possibly the primary location or primary entrance. There's also an entrance-exit along Irving, and through shared easements, they are able to access the shopping center. There are entrance and exit points along 141st on the north side of the shopping center, essentially behind the shopping center. and then there is also a right in, right out along Burnhaven Drive. From once you're accessing the site, you will start with Starbucks. You're accessing the Starbucks restaurant in this location. There's a access point here, a shared access point here. This will also get you into the Chick-fil-A. The drive-through for the Chick-fil-A is along the southeast corner of the building, exiting here, and this, through some discussions with staff, is exit only. So whether you're coming out of the drive-through or if you're parked down here and you're looking to get out of the site, this is exit only, so we've eliminated a conflict with customers coming in here. If you're going through the drive-through for Starbucks, you're coming in this similar direction, coming at this point. The drive-through, the menu board is on this side, and again the pickup window is on the south side. Once you come out of the drive-through lane, drive-through window, and you reach this section, this is also one way, directing people out and away from the building. These points are two-way. This point is also one way. So if you're coming in this way looking to get into the drive-through lane or take some of these angled stalls, this is one way heading west, this is one way heading east, and this is two-way. Hopefully that gives you a little bit better understanding of the general access. As I indicated, the shopping center is adding trash enclosures for existing tenants and dumpsters that sit out on site. This has been in discussions with the management company for a while, so staff sees that as a great benefit. And here's the location for the rainwater garden, part of their stormwater management. As I indicated, both restaurants do have a drive-through lane. Both have outdoor seating. For Starbucks, it's located on the east side of the building in this area. For Chick-fil-A, it's located on the south side of the building in this area. Jumping back to outdoor seating, Starbucks, they're looking at 16 seats outside. Chick-fil-A is proposed at 26. We get into the architecture. Here's a close-up. I apologize, I could have used this before. Here's a close-up of the two restaurants and the layout. If we have questions, we can certainly get into that. There are pedestrian connections crossing some of the main ring roads. Also, a connection getting out to the sidewalk and trail on County Road 42. Similar for Chick-fil-A, an access point connecting that sidewalk and trail to their main entrance at this point. Again, if there's questions on trash enclosure or access, we can come back to that. Here's a landscape plan. Again, the one deviation required related to the architecture is the use of metal panels. The applicant is proposing this primary feature or entrance feature to be a metal panel. The rest of it are shades of red brick, which will be very compatible with the existing buildings in the area as well as the neighboring restaurant. This comes out to be 28%. The other elevations are under that 25% threshold, but there is a deviation required for that. Staff is very comfortable with that deviation. And again, the use of the red brick and the darker awnings will help bring that compatibility out between the two restaurants. The red brick was also incorporated into the existing TCF Bank building, which will give a nice curb appeal from County Road 42. The Chick-fil-A building is slightly larger and slightly taller. Starbucks is at 19.5 feet. I believe Chick-fil-A is at 23.5 feet. Very compatible in height. Done a nice job with awnings and detailing, lots of glass, lots of windows. You can see the just under 500 square foot play area proposed for the Chick-fil-A. Staff is very supportive of the architecture for both buildings. Getting back to the site plan for Chick-fil-A, again, you'll see the order boards are located in this area. Drive-through pickup is right here. Trash enclosures are here. The main entrance to the building is here. There are actually two sets of order boards for this operation. The applicant feels, and does it in many locations, feels that's a very efficient way to get drive-through customers through. So in this area where you can see the drive-through lane is a little bit wider, there's actually 2 lanes of stacking. Once you get through the merging point, this is all single lane. Staff understands with the newness and the excitement of both of these restaurants, there is going to be significant traffic in and around the shopping center. For the first few months, there will be backup in the drive-through. Staff understands that, and as the newness wears off, we certainly hope they're successful, but we don't feel that it will be an ongoing traffic issue. There was a study done. There is sufficient on-site stacking and queuing for the drive-through on a regular basis. Also, if you look at the larger site plan, backup or stacking issues for the drive-through lanes will not impact the public access. They are far enough away from Burnhaven as well as the access to 42. It may be a little bit cumbersome within the shopping center, but it's not creating a public nuisance or public hazard because it's far enough off of the public streets. Couple other points I wanted to mention was the deviation to the building perimeter green space. The required percentage is 50. Starbucks is at 32%. Chick-fil-A is at 49%. Again, a lot of this gets to how the site's configured with the drive-through lanes. One side needs to be hard pavement, so you can pull your vehicle right up to the drive-through lane. That eliminates the longer side for both buildings. They have done a nice job with the landscaping. They've been able to meet the intent of the landscaping, especially around the outdoor seating, around the building perimeter, and the perimeter of the site. Staff's comfortable with the deviations presented there. Similarly, the applicant has done a nice job with this corner right at Burnhaven and 42. It is a substantial corner for the city. You'll notice with the existing Champs building, they've got a nice green space out there. Their outdoor patio sits on that corner. The applicant has done a nice job to provide buffer and screening, not only a visual buffer, but a physical buffer with those plantings to soften the impact of cars that are going to be stacked or queued along this corner. And you can see here the proposed outdoor seating area. Commissioners, the signage for both buildings are within the zoning ordinance. They are both relatively minimal in size or square footage for the signage. On the building, Starbucks is proposing right around 100 square feet. Their entitled 220 square feet of signage, so that's within the range. The wall signs for Chick-Fil-A are right at 150 square feet. They are entitled over 450 for their total signage, so they are within their allotment. Both buildings have signage on all four sides of the building. The size range in size and style, but there is signage on all four sides of the buildings. One concern staff has, I believe the applicant's supportive of that, but we can get to that in a minute, would be the proposal for pylon signs for both restaurants. Again, because we're dealing with one lot, the lot is entitled a pylon sign, one pylon sign, not necessarily each building or each tenant or anything like that. Staff feels with their proximity to County Road 42, the design with four-sided signage around the building and their ability to do monument signs rather than pylon signs, staff is recommending against the two pylon signs proposed. The center does have a pylon sign. It's right near their main entrance off of County Road 42. I'm sure there's lease agreements in place that are going to prevent these two restaurants from going onto that pylon sign immediately, but that's something the applicant can work out as time goes on. Staff feels there's enough flexibility within our sign ordinance that two new pylons along County Road 42 would be not necessarily a mistake, but aesthetically it's something we could do without. That is actually, Commissioners, the only condition staff has. As I indicated, there was a traffic study done. There was also stormwater management done for the site. We can get into that. Mr. Hillgardner has some of the details if you have questions for staff. We do have a team with the property owner. The management group for the site is here. I believe they've got enough people at the meeting they can handle any questions that come their way. With that, Commissioners, staff is supportive of the application. One condition as listed in your report, and I'll stand for any questions you have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Slania, for that detailed presentation. Commissioners, questions of Mr. Slania? Comments?
None, still. None, sure. None from me.
None for me, Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Corey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Concerning the green space around each building, how does that compare to what Champs has now? In other words, if you put them together, are we getting more or less?
Building perimeter landscaping, that is a great question, Commissioners. I would say just eyeballing it, I'd say it's likely Champs is not meeting that requirement right now because they do have parking on two sides, and we are not counting that patio as building perimeter. Essentially, that penalizes both Chick-fil-A and Starbucks in their proposal as well because we're not counting that towards the landscaping. If you did, I think both would be at or very close to the requirement.
Thank you. The other question concerning the two pylon signs, I understand that. Is there a proposal then for one for both of them then, or is that not?
At this point, staff indicated we'd be supportive of the monument signs, one for each, and I believe the applicant was trying to sort that out with the tenants to see which way everybody wanted to go.
Okay, so it's sort of an either or.
Correct. It would not be, to be honest, I think staff would prefer no pylons, but would be supportive of two individual monuments.
Okay. I think that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Corey. Any other questions? Would you like to have the applicant, so anybody has any questions of the applicant? Okay, none? So, thank you, Mr. Slaney. This application requires a public hearing. I would now open the public hearing. Anyone from the audience who would like to come up and address the commission on this application, please feel free to do so now.
We're not that scary.
That's scary. Okay, seeing none, would you like to come up? Or, please mention your name and address for the records.
Sure. Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Justin Wing with CSM Corporation, 500 Washington Avenue in Minneapolis. We've got representatives from the tenants. We're excited about this project. I think we're bringing in two exciting new retailers to the Burnsville retail area. Addressing the signage real quick, I guess one item there. I think we do have both groups have agreed to individual monument signs versus individual pylon signs, so hopefully that gives you guys some clarification there. So that's really about it, unless you guys have questions for us.
Any questions? Yes, Commissioner Corey?
Just one quick question on the traffic flow. I guess it seems a little confusing. Do you anticipate a problem with that, or what was the thought process, I guess, going into that, if you know?
It was really just function for the building itself, and I think with the one-ways and the signage that we've created with the city staff, that it'll address any internal issues that could be created from the traffic flow.
So there'll be internal signs around at the entrance and exits or whatever it is?
Yep, an exit only, entrance only.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Bradrick?
I had a question. For the Starbucks, you put in a walkway. It looks like it's going to be some brick in the street or something to designate a path to get from the big parking lot to the Starbucks. And I, staring at the plan over the weekend, I couldn't come up with a better solution. But was there a reason why you also didn't attempt to do that to get from the parking lot to the Chick-Fil-A? And the reason I asked, I went and spent a little time at the Chick-fil-A in Apple Valley. It was on a Saturday, kind of busy, and there was the parking seemed pretty adequate, but there were people park. I saw people park at the Cub Foods, and then walk. And it's an internal drive, but they were walking across it to get to the Chick-fil-A. And we've got a couple of other scenarios not far from this. We've got a Burger Jones that was put in a while back that a fair amount of people use the parking lot in front of LA Fitness, and there's no real great way to designate to get from point A to point B, and I didn't know if there was, I know there's a struggle maybe with that island, but was there some thought process put into duplicating a walkway to get to the Chick-fil-A?
I think we did have some discussion with staff on that, if I recall, Chris.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I can jump in. That was the sidewalk for Starbucks wasn't on the original plan. It was something staff requested simply because of the proximity to other parking in that area. If you're at Starbucks and those 6 or 8 stalls fill up right in front of that front door, you're just as close to park on the other side of the shopping center ring road as you are to park where it says parcel B. I think our staff felt long-term, once the initial excitement settled out, people are going to start finding their own ways to park and their closest way to the front door. On the other hand, Chick-fil-A had more immediate parking within their little area without having to cross that ring road.
Okay.
And that's where the connection came from.
Okay. Thank you,
Okay.
Chair.
You're welcome. Commissioner Benke, you wanted to say?
No. thanks.
Okay. Commissioners, I too was concerned about the traffic flow. And I noticed you have 2 ordering stations, and then the they merge into one, I guess, where you go to pay and you get your stuff. I recall when we were doing McDonald's, the same thing came up. McDonald's in Burnsville and 42 there. And McDonald's has the two ordering stations, and they merge again into one to go and pay and to get your stuff. And it's working well. So I think the only concern I have now is that one-way exit. I would hope that appropriate and adequate signage is placed there so that people don't tend to come in there from the outside parking area.
Yep.
So I hope that would be done.
Yeah, I think we did address that in some of the plans, and I don't know if they're on here, but we did have that discussion with staff and submitted signage.
That's good enough for me.
Yep.
Mrs. Slaney?
Just as a follow-up to that, Commissioners, staff did get a full signage plan from the applicant.
Okay.
We didn't include it in here simply because of the size of plans, the number of plans we were already including in all those details. But engineering looked at it, and we're comfortable with what was presented.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add?
That's it.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
Yep.
Thank you. We
We
Appreciate
still,
your
still have, it's still a public hearing. Any other person would like to come up? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, over to you. Comments or not? But before we proceed, I think I was very impressed with Mr. Slaney's very detailed presentation. We are having two buildings with all the intricacies of construction and the layout. I think the applicant has, I'm told, has worked very cooperatively with staff, and I want to commend you for doing that. Speaks well of your organization, and I want to commend you for that. So thank you. Yes. Anything else? Okay, do I hear a motion then?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Ben.
I do have a comment,
Sure.
and I apologize to my commissioners because I'm probably going to be a little bit long-winded here. I'll be voting no on this. Basically, my rationale is based on the fact that currently there are no drive-in restaurants on this segment of County Road 42. I don't believe that adding fast food operations in this location, this corner of County Road 42 is appropriate, Burnhaven Drive. I don't think that the business model of fast food operation, high volume, quick service is appropriate for traffic in this area. As an observation, this will be the third Starbucks, not the second, the third Starbucks in 1,600 feet. There's one at Target. There's one in Barnes & Noble. Now that's a financial decision, a business decision on their part, and I just simply observe it as a fact. Currently, we have an 8,000 square foot sit-down restaurant at this location. It's been here for 23 years. Shows that the area supports this type of an establishment. The building was an extensive remodel of a classic round TCF bank. You can't look at it and tell right now, but it was. The building at that time was a very well done remodel. It has lasted quite a while. It's been not maintained recently, which could be part of the reason why they decided they might want to raise it. But the bones of the building are in good shape, and the windows seem to be the spot that's the most damaged. A sit-down restaurant provides for tipped wait staff that can earn a living wage. And what we're looking at approving here basically is staff with minimum wage workers. That's a financial comment again, but again, it's a fact, and it seems to go against the City Council's goals of creating living wage jobs in Burnsville. Again, as an aside, and just that, I had heard from two local establishments who were disappointed that they didn't know about the availability of this location before they updated their existing spaces, as they would have seriously considered relocating to this location. The bar for new structures along this chunk of 42 has been set very high with the redevelopment of the Baker Square building into Porter Creek. And quite honestly, I don't believe that trading a 4,800 square foot building and an 1,800 square foot building for an 8,000 square foot building does that. I don't believe that it constitutes denser development. Beyond that, quite honestly, I see the fast food restaurants as a fatal flaw in this proposal right from the beginning. And that was the reason for my no vote. Beyond that, I really struggle with the non-compliant trash structures. We seem to be continually getting submissions where they're trying to take care of things that should have been done before. The proposed structures to me, as a designer, really are no more than prototype standardized buildings. I don't see them as contributing to the higher standard of design that includes Border Creek, or the upgrades that were done to Red Lobster, or the work that Lucky 13 did when they came into the city, or the work that was done on remodeling the Dakota County Library. Fast food restaurants have been called the geography of nowhere. They simply don't tend to address the surroundings unless we ask you to do so. And I don't see what they've done here as doing that, even to the issue of them needing to get a variance for the metal panels. I've done projects in Burnsville. I've sat on that side of the dais. And when the city council berates me for creating a sea of sameness, I don't think that I can accept less than that from people coming to work here, bringing their projects in. I think that if the buildings are to be allowed, I think that we need more than just the prototype buildings. Given that the parking and green space both are less than what's required, the overall site totals notwithstanding, the fact that they are come into this one parcel and trying to place two buildings on it, to me indicates that the project is too dense. That basically we're trying to put 5 pounds in the proverbial 2-pound can. I really struggle with the idea that we have to add landscaping to screen the drive-through to lessen the impact of the corner of Burnhaven Drive and County Road 42. I don't believe that the drive-through should go through the area. I think that should be green space that allows the project to meet the requirements. Access of the drive aisle through Burnhill Plaza. Right now, there's can be problems in that area during traffic times, and I believe that putting these two restaurants into that will create traffic problems. I believe that the stacking behind Chick-Fil-a will block the people leaving Starbucks, and I realize that there's been a comment that they have complimentary hours, but yet Starbucks is open till 11 p.m. I do believe that there'll be conflicts. I do believe that while there may be an escape hatch, I don't think most people are going to notice it, and I think that there will be traffic problems internal to the site. Once you get out into the parking lot, I think that if we leave the access in front of Carpet King open, we will have short-circuited the semaphore at 141st and Burnhaven, and I don't think that's good traffic. I think that putting people right out from Chick-fil-A, you're basically making a quick right turn and then another quick right turn, and I think that we're going to have problems with traffic there. Generally, I think it looks like there's an expectation, as just was mentioned, that we're going to try to make up for the lack of some of this parking by going to the adjacent area, which is what currently happens with the restaurant that's there. And I'm not going to refer to it as Champs because I realize that Champs by itself is going to go away. Their bankruptcy is basically shut them down. I do think that if another restaurant was to come in there, that they would use that traffic, they would use that parking the same way. That I do see as a complementary use because most of that parking lot does not fill up, as we noticed, and it's only in the really busy times around the holidays when any of the parking lots around Burnsville Center fill up. The thing is that the best example for this not being a good idea for these two restaurants is right down the street at Chipotle, because the people at Chipotle park across the street in Target, and you have people walking across a drive in traffic trying to get to that restaurant. That's a little different, I know, because that's not a drive-through, but it still is a restaurant where people are going to want to walk to, and you've shown that by trying to provide the connections. We didn't get to see the traffic study. I'm assuming that it probably shows that everything will be fine, but I can't imagine that the complete difference in traffic patterns between this and the existing restaurant won't cause some issues. And again, I'm going back to the Chipotle restaurant down the way as an example of that. I feel like this is a really major intersection in the Burnsville Center area, and I just don't see this as a positive to that site. Like I said, I was going to be a little long-winded, but I thought about this all weekend, so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Benke. I think from what you have said, I can tell that you have given a lot of thought, and with your experience as a builder, whatever the decision of the Planning Commission, whatever recommendation we make, I hope that the City Council would take into consideration the points you have raised as food for thought in making their decision. So I appreciate it very much, and I commend you for
Thank you.
taking the time to do this. Any other comments? Do I hear a motion from someone?
I move that we recommend to the planning to the City Council that this project be the recommended denial.
A motion for the denial from Commissioner Benke. Any seconder for that? Going for it one time? Second time? Third time? No second. That motion has failed. Do I hear another motion? Commissioner Corey?
Chair, the Planning Commission recommends to the City Council approval of the Planned Unit Development Amendment by M.M. Burnsville Associates LP for construction of Starbucks and Chick-Fil-A restaurants located at 1200 County Road 42 West with the following condition: pylon signs are not permitted for Starbucks and Chick-fil-A. The applicant shall eliminate the proposed pylon signs from the plans prior to release of building permit.
Motion to recommend from Commissioner Corey. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bradrick. Any other discussion? Those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. 4 votes. Those against?
No.
1 vote. The motion, the application is passed on a 4-1 vote. This will go to the City Council next on the 2nd of December. Thank you for your cooperation, for coming, and good luck. Okay, Commissioners, item number 4, a work plan item, LED light band discussion. Mr. Slania?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, let me get to the end of this. Okay. We are, Commissioners, we are back now for a public hearing on this. We've discussed it, obviously, a couple times at a more informal setting. Staff finally got some language together in an ordinance format for everyone to review, comment on. It is a public hearing. Staff is proposing 3 changes to Chapter 30, which is the sign ordinance. The first gets to the general provisions related to how bright a surface of a sign is. We currently have this language addressing dynamic billboards and changeable copy. We would be adding the illuminated architectural features to that category. Again, it applies to 500 nits during the day, 7,500, nits at night, 7,500 nits during the day. That is consistent with what Civic Center Parkway has out on Nicollet. The second change, also in the general provisions, letter O, this gets to the details by which we regulate the architectural features, how we calculate the square footage, where they can be located, how we define them, and so forth. This addresses the ability that, or should someone propose this in the future, these features cannot change in color or brightness unless it is once every 30 seconds. So that is consistent with what the changeable copy regulations say. Also, each illuminated feature must have a light sensing device, so during the night these images are able to dim. During the day, when it's brighter, they can increase the brightness. And last but not least, and this came up from our discussion at just the last meeting, currently wall signs are not permitted when they are abutting a residential zoning district. We talked about, well, what if we change that to a conditional use permit, let applicants go through this process. Staff spent some time on this and had a concern because in the end, a conditional use permit is, for lack of a better word, a conditional use is permitted with conditions. And we didn't want to get into a situation where we could not over-condition something to make it feasible to the neighboring residents. Somebody that shares that property line, not necessarily across the street, but somebody that shares that property line, even in an ideal situation, a business would still want their signage on till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. That may just be too much or too late for the neighbors. So we tweaked it a little bit. Actually, we even talked about, well, should we talk about signage that's across the street from residential and not just abutting? And we had a number of conversations. In the end, what we're recommending is leave the signage abutting residential as prohibited, as the ordinance says now. Anything across the street from residential, have that light sensing device so it does dim with the ambient light. That is not currently in the ordinance. I originally thought it was. Again, that would apply to changeable copy or a dynamic billboard that would never be adjacent to residential anyway. But staff feels this is another layer of protection we can give the residents. With that, Commissioners, it is a public hearing, and I will take any questions we have. If there is changes to the language, we're open to that, and we can make adjustments before we go to the City Council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Slaney. Thank you for putting this together. You are only the last regular meeting of this Planning Commission. We discussed this matter. Appreciate your putting everything together. Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Benke?
Yeah. Chris, can you go back one slide?
You bet.
I guess I'm just trying to be clear here because, this doesn't specifically talk about the LED bands. It does speak specifically to neon. Is there a need to talk about what the light source is? Or obviously neon was the norm, and it's not going to be going forward, presumably. So how do we stay with that technology? Again, is it something where we just eliminate that name or describe it slightly different?
That's a great point. I assume you're looking at this area right here.
Specifically, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was the lack of the mention of LED that concerned me more than anything else. But The other thing I was curious about, is this retroactive to,
It would not,
as an ordinance?
not be retroactive.
Okay.
It would be, it would apply to a business or something else that, that was doing substantial changes. So if a business has neon now, and they're looking to retrofit then to LED, it would need a sign permit,
Sure.
and we could address it there.
Is it only under the sign permits, or would there be a building permit trigger as well?
Or the sign permit, I was thinking, would be the simplest. Convenience stores not making any other changes, just switching this out, it would trigger the sign permit. If it was more substantial, absolutely. If it was a building permit.
So would a good example to Commissioner Bensky's question, if this was in place with the remodel of the Holiday Station,
It would
it would have
have,
been substantial enough
correct.
that going forward, then they would have been under, is that correct?
That is correct, because staff followed these standards by calculating the square footage and everything.
Right.
A permit was issued.
Right.
So this would have addressed that.
Thank you. Are you done?
Commissioners,
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I really think that the changes are good. I just wondered if we wanted to try to address.
Yeah.
Commissioners,
Change
that's a
in
good point. Thinking about it, I think rather than adding LED, maybe it's better just to eliminate neon. And then it's a broader, has a broader effect.
Multiple rows of light bands, eliminated sign bands, backlit. I think, yeah, I think you're right. If we eliminate the specific kind, just in case somebody comes up with a new,
Yep.
Make it
New one.
inclusive for all the
yeah,
other.
yeah. I think less is more in terms of being descriptive.
Commissioner Corey?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Could I propose, and I'm just throwing this out as something came to my head, instead of using neon, could we use the words light source? Would that be better? Because then it would be flexible with whatever light they're using?
Or would that start to cover wall packs and other light sources?
I'm not sure, and that's why I'm saying.
Light source is too general.
Yeah, maybe it's too general.
I think light source may open up other
Yeah.
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
issues. But if that's a direction from the Planning Commission, staff can tweak this, eliminate neon. I would not add LED, and just reference it as illuminated sign bands or something.
Mr. Slaney, I think neon is clearly a linear light source. And I think that anything that helps describe that, I mean, and the LED bands that we're speaking of are the same. I think anything that describes it as a linear light source would be fine.
We can do that.
Okay.
I agree.
No, I think,
How about linear light source?
That's yeah.
I mean, I guess I would be in supportive of you, what's the term, wordsmithing this to make sure it's right. I
Yeah.
think you've got what we're talking, just so
Absolutely.
we don't limit ourselves to a technology
or
that,
be too general too.
Yeah. And we do have a goal, and I think we're getting there very quickly.
Thank you for Commissioner Banky for catching that. That was very, very good.
Commissioners, I can make that change. Any other revisions or adjustments?
Anything else?
No.
None. This is a public hearing. This application requires a public hearing. I now open the public hearing. Anyone from the audience who desire to come up and address the commission on this matter, feel free to do so. Commissioners seeing none, I close the public hearing and it's over now to commissioners. I think we've we only recently worked on this, and I think Commissioner Benke caught something that Mr. Slania will be doing some wordsmithing with and make it appropriate. If there's no other discussion, do I hear a motion? Commissioner Benke, you first.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I would move that we approve the ordinance amending Title 10.
Excuse me, if you recommend to the City Council.
I'm sorry, you're right, that we recommend to the City Council that we approve the ordinance amending Title 10, Chapter 30, Subdivision 3 and 7 of the zoning ordinance of the Burnsville City Code addressing illuminated architectural features and wall signs with the administrative changes discussed to the wording.
Thank you, Commissioner Benke. Commissioner Benke, motion to recommend to the City Council approval.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Thomas. Any other discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. We'll pass on a 5-0 vote. Okay. Next item on the agenda is updates. Any updates, Commissioners? Staff?
Commissioners, you have just one meeting left for 2014. It'll be December 8th, which is a Monday. We are going to be spending some time on our architectural guidelines and the discussion of that. Most of you were at the work session with the council. Now I can't even remember when that was, July or August or
September.
sometime. It feels like quite a while ago, but we are moving ahead on this. We'll have a good interactive discussion on the 8th, some images to look at, some discussion to have on that, and at that point we'll kind of lay out where staff is on this, how we're going to try to move it forward, and then we'll give you some dates as well for 2015 as to what meetings we're going to try to hit and go from there.
Great.
Chris, this that we just recommended goes to the council on December 2 as well?
Yes. Yep, that ordinance
It'll be
will
a
go on the 2nd.
council on December 2. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you for coming for your deliberations. Staff, thank you. To our listening and viewing audience, we appreciate your tuning us in. You know, at the Planning Commission, we work very hard to make Burnsville the best place to live, the best place to work, the best place to own a business, and the best place to shop. We all live here, and we work very hard to achieve those goals. To staff and commissioners, happy Thanksgiving. To the public, happy Thanksgiving to one and all. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Commissioner Bradrick.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Benke. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Good night, everyone.